This is George from High Tech Legion. Many people may not realize that the initial ASUS Sabertooth boards were actually designed as being server boards. The emphasis was on great cooling, extended reliability, and extremely durable design. Now naturally, those are three things that play perfectly into enthusiast builds. I mean, obviously, you want great cooling, you want durable design, you want extended reliability. The other thing being, the ASUS was built with much more rigorously tested components, so it was able to take a great overclock and really not have a problem with it. So it began becoming used in more and more enthusiast builds. Now, with each passing generation we've seen of the Sabertooth, we've seen more and more, shall we say, creature comforts come into play with them. More and more usability features for the average consumer. Now, the new Sabertooth Z97 Mark I, while the Z97 chipset itself, really the emphasis is on the addition of SATA Express and really not much else. The Sabertooth Z97 Mark I adds quite a bit in the way of creature comforts and convenience features, and we're going to take a look at them today. Now, one of the things about the Sabertooth should be noted, as far as testing goes, they use a 20% more critical standards on the Sabertooth than they do on other boards as far as burn-in test and cooling test. Now, as far as reliability, they're 60% higher on the standards on the Sabertooth, and that includes I/O insertion. So that you're guaranteed some very good reliability. Now let's get our first look here at the Sabertooth itself. Quick look at the box, of course. Intel Z97 chipset. ALC1150, so it's ready for Haswell 4th and 5th generation of the core chipset, the core CPU. Intel Core, obviously right there. SLI and Crossfire ready. Windows 8.1 HDMI and Ultra HD 4K. Move around the back, just very quickly, like I say. Overview of the thermal armor, TUF Fortifier, Thermal Radar 2 software, which integrates very well with the temperature sensors in the board itself, and dust defenders that we're going to take a look at. And you can see the basic overview of the board right here. But let's look at it on the board itself where we can get a good look. Now, first thing you notice about the Sabertooth, and the first thing everyone notices about the Sabertooth, is of course the thermal armor. As you can see here, there is actually armor over the board itself. This keeps dust out, also is utilized for keeping the board cool. Now what you actually have is two small fans, one which will be placed here, and another in the rear I/O, which actually keep fresh air coming in under the dust thermal armor, I should say, and keeps all of your motherboard components cool. So you wind up with better cooling for the motherboard components than you would with an open motherboard, as you see here. Now you've also got venting on your components up top and on the side. So you can open up these vents or close them, depending on what type of cooling you're using, and you'll be able to see a difference between liquid cooling, I should say, as well as air cooling, and what is flowing in there. So you can actually keep hot air out from being blown across any of the other motherboard components. So basic overview here, as you see, you've got the thermal armor on the front. Now on the back, we've also got the TUF Fortifier. Basically, it's a large backplate. So what that's going to do is strengthen the board considerably. You're going to get no flex on the board no matter how heavy the components you hang on it are. You want to hang a really large air cooler on it, not a problem at all. You're not going to get any board flex. But more importantly than that, what the TUF Fortifier does, it actually acts as a ground plane. So it actually acts to dissipate heat as part of the ground plane. So basically, it's a functional piece as far as heat dispersion, as well as a piece of strengthening material. So really nice looking build here, and of course very, very tough. You know, you're not going to bend it at all. You know, it is the TUF board, and it's made to look and be tough. Now you will notice ASUS has added a little bit of camouflage here and there. Purely subjective matter whether or not you like it. It used to be the straight black or the pewter type color, but now they have gone to the camouflage. That is not, unfortunately, a decal that can be removed very easily. It is onto the metal itself. So you do have that going right there. Now, let's go around and take a look at some of the layout of the board. I'm actually going to start the motherboard layout overview in kind of an odd place, and that is going to be on the cooling itself. Just because, like I say, the cooling is an integral part of the Sabertooth design. Now, first off, as I had said, you have the removable plate in the thermal armor, which comes off, and tiny fan, which then goes into place, as you can see, on the board itself, and fan header for it sits right behind there. So that's going to get your air blowing underneath the thermal armor. You've also got one in the rear. Up top, you've got CPU fan and CPU op fan. They are not independently controllable. They do run in tandem. So the fan speed you set for one is going to obviously apply to the other. There's only one adjustment for them. Right next to that, you've got the header for the fan, which it goes into the back, which would pop right through here, plug in there. You've also got an ASST fan 3 right here. Now up front, you've got chassis fan header and 3 chassis fan headers across the bottom, 1 right up front and 2 back here. So now all of these can actually be tied to individual components using the included thermal radar 2. So in other words, what I'm saying there is you can actually tie the chassis fan 1 to, if you're using it in front of the hard drives on an intake fan, you can actually tie it to the temperature of the hard drive using one of the included thermal sensors. 3 included thermal sensors, which will go into the board. Also, you can use, if you're using liquid cooling, water temperature sensor, or any other sensor you're using. So you can actually tie each of these to individual components, either using the sensors or through the software to the CPU, to the VRM. You can tie it to actually the DIMM slots. So you can actually go through, as we'll see, and tie each individual fan header into specific components, or of course you can set them to any type of audio you like. So you've got more control here than you probably do on any other motherboard around as far as cooling. So really a very nice layout there as far as the cooling goes. Taking a look at some of the connectivity around the board, obviously LGA1150 socket for DIMM slots. One of the nice things, once again, ASUS uses the one side pop-off. Bottom side stays stable. You only need to loosen one side to put in your RAM. Capable of DDR3 1866, up to 32 gigabytes. Some people do kind of balk at that number, the 1866 number, and say, well, what about DDR3 3000? Most of the Sabertooths we've tested actually will run higher than 1866, but they are only certified up to 1866. Now, moving on from there, obviously PCI Express X16, X8, X4, 3 X1 slots, the motherboard power header, CPU power header up top. Now, going down, you've got USB 3 headers here and here. So you've got a total of 4 front panel USB 3 headers you can use. You've also got 2 USB 2.0 headers, obviously 2 on each, for a total of 4 there as well. And moving around to the back, you've got 4 more USB 3.0, 4 more USB 2.0. And while we're back here, dual LAN connectors, Intel and Realtek, as well as your audio outputs right here with digital out, and also DisplayPort, HDMI for video. Now, naturally, this is only going to work if you're using a video-enabled CPU. Now, moving on from there, getting a look now over on the other side, you've got a total of what actually here is 4 SATA 3s, 2 here, 2 here, with this bottom row being dedicated for the SATA Express. So you've got a total of 4 plus 4 SATA 3s plus the SATA Express here with the USB 3, as we said before. Down the bottom, you've got 2 more SATA 3s right next to the USB headers as discussed. So you've got some great connectivity options. And on the back I/O, like I say, you've got quite a bit going on here as well. I do like the addition of the 2 additional USB 3.0 headers for front panel use. USB 2 is really kind of going by the wayside, obviously. So it's nice to have the option to put the 4 USB 3.0 headers up on the front of the case. A couple of interesting things going on under the armor. First off, like we said, the Sabertooth uses all military class components. It's also using new chokes, which are rated to run about 13% cooler than the chokes that they've used in the past. So you're going to get better longevity and better cooling, as well as a little bit more power handling out of those particular chokes. Now, the VRM is 8 plus 2 phase, 8 phase for the CPU, 2 phase for the RAM itself. And also, They've also gone up to 7.1 audio based off of the Realtek 1150. So you've got some good audio on here. They've also gone ahead and separated out the audio like they have in their higher end boards, and especially the ROG boards. So you get less interference, better signal to noise, less interference, so a better overall audio experience overall. Like I say, the Sabertooth with each generation has more and more creature comforts, and we're definitely seeing it here with the upgraded audio, the dual LAN, etc. So you've definitely got a very, very usable board. You're not going to be wanting for features like you were on Sabertooth boards in the past. One thing I do want to bring up that I had forgotten to mention when we were talking about the cooling, the CPU headers up top, both of them, are auto switching between DC and PWM fans. They are a 4-pin, but if you plug a 3-pin in DC controlled fan, it is actually going to automatically switch over to DC control. That was a great feature that ASUS is bringing back. A lot of their older boards had not the auto switching, but had manual switching, and then became PWM only. So it's nice to see again that we're seeing DC control. Now moving on, one of the big other features of the thermal armor is the dust defender. If you haven't seen a dust defender, what they actually are is basically knockout plates that go into any blank spots where you don't put a component in the board. This is going to keep dust out from under the thermal armor and in the component slots themselves, so you don't have to worry about dust buildup. Also, obviously, it gives you a really nice, clean look. Now, ASUS includes them for all of your PCI slots. Obviously, you get 2 RAMs, so if you're using 2 RAMs sticks and you've got 2 empty slots, you've got dust defenders to put in there. PCI Express 1 slots. You've got them for absolutely everything. Even your rear I/O, right down to the video, USB connectors. Basically everything, even the audio connectors, you've got dust defenders for. So you can get a really nice clean look as well as keep all the dust out of the contacts for your components. And getting a look at the included accessories, obviously user guide, driver disc, accessory installation guide, which if you go through, actually goes through the dust defenders, the assist fans, temp sensors, certificate of reliability, 5-year warranty notice. There is a 5-year warranty on the TUF Series boards, as is stated here. TUF Inside sticker, headers for the front panel header, so you can actually connect front panel connections here and just have one plug into the motherboard. 4 SATA cables, 3 temp sensors, the 2 assist fans, SLI bridge, and of course the rear I/O. So let's get into the case and take a look at exactly how it does performance-wise. But even before we get into the case, obviously, we've got a lot of great stuff going on here with Sabertooth. We've got some very, very nice creature comfort type upgrades, like I say. A lot of good functionality happening here with Sabertooth. Looking at the benchmarks, there are no surprises here. The Z97 chipset was not made to be a performance upgrade from the Z87, and we're really not seeing one. Numbers are right in line with exactly what we saw from the Z87 chipset. The thing that does stand out is that nothing sticks out. There are no bad spots here in any of the tests in any way, shape, or form, and the Sabertooth Z97 does test out as a top-tier board in every respect. Moving into summing things up, one of the things I do want to point out, this is merely the overview video of an entire review. It's one of 3 videos in the review, plus you have written material in the review. If nothing else, I do suggest you take a look at the other two videos on the BIOS and thermal radar, since they are such an important part of what makes the Sabertooth special. So definitely head over there. Link is right down in the description to the full review. You'll find the other two videos there as well as the written review. Now, taking a look at the Sabertooth itself, we didn't expect really any performance gains from the Z87 to the Z97, and we really didn't see any. But by the same token, the Z97 Sabertooth Mark 1 didn't show any weak points either. It really stood up as well as the Z87, was top flight in absolutely every aspect as far as performance. But now that didn't stop ASUS from really tweaking the Sabertooth and making it a little bit more mainstream, which is kind of nice. It remains very, very special. Of course, first off, you've got the thermal armor, as you see, which is more than just a gimmick. It really does keep dust out, keeps the VRM a lot cooler. You've got the two fans, which you add on, like we say. So you're going to keep things cool under thermal armor, keep the dust out, got the dust defenders, which go in, and keep more dust out. And also, let's face facts, it really looks really cool when it's in the case. You've got the TUF Fortifier on the back for increased heat dissipation, as well as making it a very, very sturdy motherboard. That, of course, also being important, no flex whatsoever. You've got the traditional Sabertooth military class components, including the Japanese black capacitors, as well as the metal alloy chokes. So you get great durability out of it. The overclocking, like I say, for 24/7 overclocking, you're not going to beat it in any type of mainstream board. Keeps up with the best of them. Now, really, the things that make it special, like I say, the Thermal Radar 2, absolutely fantastic. Did have some little quirks with it as far as it took the fan tuning a couple of times to get things right. Did have to run it, like I say, a few times before it got everything right. Not a big deal. After everything was done, the TUF Ice IC really took over and did a nice job of cooling things. And one of the really cool things is, really that it assigned every fan to the specific spot of the motherboard that it sensed it was cooling. So really, it did a very nice job. Plus, you had the manual controls, and you've got all those points to select from where you're going to be cooling. Plus the selectable DC, and this time it's real PWM on the headers. It's not DC with a fourth pin like we've seen previously in the Sabertooth when it said, or any of the ASUS boards. It said it was PWM. It wasn't. This has a true PWM signal. So if you're going to be using a PWM pump or other PWM component that requires a signal, it's going to be here. The BIOS itself, absolutely fantastic. No problems there whatsoever. Probably one of the most intuitive BIOSes I've seen in a long time. Very, very flexible, easy to use, like I say, very intuitive, and very, very powerful. Very nice BIOS to work with. Like I say, probably the best BIOS I've seen in quite some time, if not the best BIOS I've seen overall. So overall, the Sabertooth, really steps up the Z97 Mark 1. Like I say, from the Z87. Another big surprise was actually the audio section. Sabertooths have always had just kind of a rudimentary audio section, but they've really took a lot here and used the CM1150 chip, as well as out of the ROG, channel separation and EMI shielding, so you get a much better audio experience. Probably the best audio I've heard on board that from any other board that's not an ROG board, including any other manufacturer. So did a really nice job. Like I say, a couple little quirks with the Thermal Radar 2, and you've got the thermal tuning issue, like I say, and now you also have a problem with Thermal Radar 2 where it works off a CPU temperature that, for the life of me, I can't figure out what it represents. It's not the core, it's not the package, it's kind of just this number that I think really needs to be fine-tuned by ASUS. Give you a core temp, give you a package temp, something you can work with, not just kind of this random number. In a board that prides itself in enhanced cooling, you want that number to work with. It does kind of move with the package temp, so you can actually work with it, but I'd really much rather see, like I say, the actual core package temp. So with that one little knock, the Sabertooth Z97 Mark 1 is going to take home High-Tech Legion Gold Award, and very deserving of it. Like I say, $249, fantastic board. Some great mainstream features now, very, very feature-rich. And really, just an incredible performer, as well as being probably the toughest board on the market with incredible durability.